Fearless and truthful.
Provocative and controversial.
We say it like it really is.
With dignity and respect.
Committed to free speech and common sense. Upbeat and entertaining.
Straight talking and direct.
We may agitate each other and you.
Thought-provoking, provocative and controversial.
Hello and welcome to The Pledge. Now, according to a study released this week, more than half of Brits hate the sound of their own voice. Thankfully, not a problem that we experience around this table. The same study also found 2/3 of people believe the way they speak has negatively affected them at work. Well, at least Rachel is proof that it's not just how you speak, but also how you write that can affect your job.
Oh. Thank you, Nick.
My pleasure. Coming up,
Kind support.
Majid argues the police are pandering to the PC brigade. Afua acts as judge and jury. I promise to do my best. And Phil argues inclusion should be for everyone. But first, Rachel.
Shambles, shower, abdication, surrender. Some of the kinder words for the Labour Party's Brexit policy, or lack of, to date, given its leaders have no desire to stay in the EU, but only want to topple Theresa May and enter Downing Street. But is this changing? At conference this week, Labour pledged to support all options remaining on the table if the PM's deal gets rejected, including campaigning for a public vote. Great! But what would be on the ballot paper? On that, Labour can't agree. If there is to be a vote, and it's a big if, the public cannot seriously be asked to choose only between a bad deal and no deal. The party must grow a pair and campaign for the option to remain in the EU. Otherwise, a public vote, a people's vote, a second referendum, call it what you will, would be a shocking exercise in futility, not democracy. Labour has a constitutional duty as Her Majesty's opposition to set out a clear and distinct position. If it doesn't, it is colluding in national self-harm.
Rachel, I'm going to go with you with a lot of this. It's absolutely doing my nut in. This whole Brexit thing, I'm sick to the teeth of it. The way I'm looking at this thing myself, right, if I could break this down and put it over to people to deliver it in a way that they could understand, it would be like this, all right? So, in my household, I've got Wendy, all right? She's got the majority decision, OK? She's the Brexiteer. I've got my kids, all right? They want to stay. They're the leavers, all right? But they've got less influence. They're the remainers. They've got less influence than Wendy. And they certainly haven't got the vote, OK? They've got me. I'm governing the place at the moment, all right? Now, Wendy's saying to me, come on, Phil, let's get out of here. And the kids are saying, no, Dad, can we stay for a little bit? At the moment, all the government are doing is trying to pander to everybody and keep everybody sweet. The government, exactly as you said, have got to decide, right, we've got to do something about it, we've got to act now, and we've got to get out of here while we've got any credibility. Because if I don't, Wendy's just going to lose all faith and all trust in me altogether if I don't go with
so
what the
your line is that we have to execute the result, the narrow result of a one vote that was taken over 2 years ago, and whatever the facts on the ground have changed, and whatever the deal that comes onto the table is.
If the facts on the ground have changed, it's because we've stalled and we've begged for time and we've borrowed and we've robbed Peter to pay Paul. We haven't got on with what was set out at the very beginning. When that vote was passed that we should leave Europe, when we decided that we were going to drop that flag and pick up our own, we should have done that, and we shouldn't still be dragging our feet.
Can I bring in Madge, because we're not rerunning the original referendum. What we would be doing, if we do anything, is to have a look at the result, the deal, which is a different vote.
And I'm glad you brought me in here because, so Phil, just
it's not the same vote.
It's important to recognise this point that actually, and I spoke to Nigel Farage about this, and he called it Brexit in name only. If Theresa May's Chequers deal is what we get, even Brexiteers don't believe that it's good enough. And so surely so back to your analogy with Wendy, right? Yeah. If at the end of the day, what Wendy got wasn't leave, but instead she just got a house extension, and then she was told to go and live in a conservatory under the diktat still of the person that owns the house, Wendy still wouldn't be happy. So surely you'd want the public to have a say over the terms of the deal that Theresa May brings back. And if it's not hard enough for Brexit for you, or not good enough for Remain for us, all of us surely would want a say over those terms of Brexit and what is being given to us at the end of the day. Last thing I'll say is what you spoke of was the government's position. I believe what Rachel's speaking of is the Labour Party's position, and I think at least there, it's a national disgrace that Her Majesty's opposition, primarily because of Jeremy Corbyn, who's been a Brexiteer for longer than I've been alive, are unable to take a clear position on this, and you saw that at the Labour Party conference.
Let us have a quick look at Sir Keir Starmer, Shadow Brexit Secretary's statement on Labour's position, or what it should be.
It's right that Parliament has the first say. It's right that Parliament has the first say. But if we need to break the impasse, our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option.
Yeah. We'll do it together, yeah, there we are. Absolutely. However, that was contradictory.
Can we parse that a little bit? I think people get cross at the idea of a second referendum, but why don't we see if there has to be a vote rather than a general election, which obviously the Tories aren't going to vote for, can we see this as a people's veto on a bad deal instead of a second vote?
I think the problem for me is I think there's a lot to be said for another vote, because we don't know what terms people signed up to when they voted Brexit, but...
Bide your time, Nick.
But my issue is if you look at who is backing a people's vote, they're massively pro-EU Remainers. There is no way that is going to unify...
90% of the Labour Party?
Well, let's look at
the groups that are supporting this people's vote are pro-EU views. My view is the only way we could have another vote that has any credibility is if Brexiteers are changing their minds. I want to see where the Brexiteers are now concerned about the direction this is going, which I would imagine they are, because it's a complete shambles. But the point is, for Remainers to be backing another vote looks to Brexiteers like we're trying to subvert the democratic process, and that I worry about the consequences for our democracy, because Brexit to me is a symptom, not a cause. And stopping Brexit doesn't change the fact that people voted for this because they wanted a change, and if people who voted Remain stop that change, I think it would unleash something very worrying. And I just want to show you a statistic about Labour as well, because I think you're being a little bit unfair about the Labour Party. I agree. I would have loved to see Labour come out strongly backing Remain and strongly laying down a set of demands.
In the election or at the conference?
In the initial referendum, I would have liked to see a much stronger support for Remain from Labour. And since the Brexit vote, I would have liked to see Labour doing a better job of being the opposition, holding the government to account. I've been disappointed in the way in which Labour's gone about that. But to be fair to the Labour Party, like every other party in every other part of society, they're completely divided. Look at this statistic. 61% of Labour constituencies voted Leave, but 65% of Labour voters voted Remain. This is a party that is reflecting a completely polarised base. Our country is divided. We're all divided, and there is no easy way around that.
Can I just bring in this? But the Labour Party isn't divided. If you look at the statistics regarding the party, 90% of Labour members would vote Remain in a second referendum, and 86% of Labour members would back a public vote on the outcome of the Brexit negotiations.
Yes, but this is a party that's trying to win a popular vote, though. And what Labour voters are not pro-Remain, they're divided.
Before I go to Nick, can we just see Barry Gardiner MP's tweet, which basically explained why Labour has not done its duty as opposition. Never interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake. They are just allowing the Tories to make a total horlicks of this, so they think they can stroll into Downing Street. Nick.
Afua, you referred to it as a people's vote. Sorry, who voted 2 years ago? What was it? Sheep, donkeys, vacuum cleaners? As I understand it, it was a people's vote 2 years ago. Clearly I was wrong. I wonder if I could refer you all to a document that cost £5 or £6 million that went through all our houses, why the government believes that voting to remain in the European Union is the best decision for the UK.
That was wrong.
And if you look... No, Mudgy, please. It's a once-in-a-generation decision. Not once every 2 years, not once when we decide that we don't quite like it. And let me quote directly. This is your decision. The government will implement what you... No, hold on, let me finish. Will implement what you decide. That is the reality of it, whether you like it or whether you don't. And can I just say, even when we were in Europe, it wasn't the land of milk and honey.
No,
we didn't get on particularly well on many occasions. It was a very fractious relationship. And I sometimes think when I listen to you, who I like and respect, and I listen to you, who I like and respect, and you, who I know, I seem to... I seem to think it was all so wasn't it, Mark? No! Many times
We haven't left yet.
Nobody voted against EU resolutions more than Britain.
It's talking as if we've left already.
I thought we had a pretty sweet deal with Europe. And going back to that piece of
we
paper...
haven't left yet.
But going back to that piece of paper, not worth the paper it's written on.
You can't say that's a contract. That's a contract with the people.
It's not a contract. It's a leaflet, Nick. It was an advisory referendum. It was an advisory referendum.
Where does it say advisory?
The EU referendum bill says it was an advisory...
No, in the leaflet that went to every household in the land.
That is not a legal document,
You
Nick.
can't dismiss that.
It was a leaflet.
There is actually legal precedent to show that political party promises are not legally binding.
It's not
just
legally
to say.
binding.
But I agree. I mean, that's what the government said.
On the note of the trajectory, I take your point. However, actually, the trajectory is headed in that way. Last year, 31% of people said they wanted another vote on the terms of the deal. This year, it's 42%. So people are changing their minds.
I think
only
that's
because
what
it's been allowed to stagnate. It's just stagnated. Is
Who's
what it's
allowing
doing.
that?
Of course,
Who's allowing it to
the people are. Well, no, the people in charge are allowing it to stagnate. Nobody's coming to a decision and an agreeable solution.
That's because the government has
if they actually
completely
pulled their finger out and did what they were told to do in the first place, told to do by voters, okay, we wouldn't be in this situation
they've been
now.
trying that, and it simply hasn't been working because it's so
I'll try
intractable.
another one. It's like taking the eggs out of an omelette.